Alright, it is the last day of May, and this is going to be a weekly recap over the last week. This is actually a red week, -39, and I still finished the month green. If I go to my calendar, I still finished $100 up. It's not like I'm trading large position size, although recently I have on a few trades traded a larger position size. Something cool to look at is that my biggest green day is bigger than my biggest red day. The only issue is that my biggest green trade was not as big as my biggest red trade, which was this week. A few, what can I say? Just a few cases of bad luck, really, with GGII when it just didn't break that VWAP level. I'm gonna just basically go over all of my trades, Tim Lentil style, and just see how I did for the week and what I can do to keep improving. But if you ask me, what I really have to do is I just have to trade better setups. I didn't the last 2 days. Yeah, not really good with FBCD, AABB. I did miss some nice setups just because I didn't like the price action. It wasn't too ideal. Bad luck really with MJWLTONR, but I learned from it, and it was a speculative trade. Just trying to buy a stock that seems to be holding its highs very nicely, first or second green day ideally, for a nice push towards the close that I could sell into. GGII was a bit unfortunate here because it didn't work out in that sense, but yeah, we're gonna go ahead and begin it. GGII was just a very sketchy stock, but I had 9 trades today, 5 winning trades, 55% winning percentage. As you can tell, I had my biggest loss this week was right here. My biggest, I think this was my biggest gain. It might not, but my average dollar gain was 29. My average dollar loss was 47, which is pretty bad. My average percent gain is 2%, which I guess is better than the other week. And my average percent loss was 4, which isn't too bad because at least, besides this little hiccup right here, I tend to trade a lot smaller, even though I have a negative, 4% average loss on these. I traded at just a small position at $300 because they are speculative trades. I can't get too upset for not having the best score right here. I got basically a 69, an F on whether the setup worked or not. As you can tell, a bunch of no's, one big no, one big yes, a few kindas, and just one normal yes. But did I trade well? I got basically a C, an 83 out of 100 right here, and I have like a grade scale that I just got off the internet. Really, I just need to trade better setups. That's about it, just to trade better setups. My average dollar position size is 897. My average dollar loss position size is about the same. It's not that much, and the average time in a trade on a profitable trade and loss is about the same too. I traded $8,000 of volume. I need to do something where I kind of show like a percentage of what I made or lost compared to the overall volume that I traded. But yeah, that's where I'm at right now. Just not good with my overall trading setups that I choose, but I do trade them at least, not too badly. So that's one thing to take into consideration. A few things that were not really normal, but I still need to get better. I definitely still need to get better. And yeah, what I'm going to do now is just go over all of my trades here with TD Immediate Trade. It's a great time to reflect today, Memorial Day, and to also work on my trading. I'm going to go ahead and start with the overall trade review, Tim Lentil style, but right now I'm going to do something. I'll be back in a moment. Alright, let's go ahead and go over the trades for 524. It looks like I traded 4 times. And just to look back at the calendar for 524, this was it right here. 4 trades, I lost 48 that day. And yeah, let's just go over the trades. 2 trades were with GGII, and then I had these 2 MJWLTONR that absolutely took a dump. I did trade a smaller position size on these, but had I have bag held that setup, that would have been really bad. It just did not work that day. It was pretty bad, except for TONR was, if I held just a little longer, it could have worked out, but MJWO was definitely a bad one. So let's just start from here. GGII, this is a morning panic bounce play. Did the setup? No. Did I trade well? Yes. Cut losses quickly. So let's look at GGII for 5 to 24. So GGII. And now let's look at the 24th, which was right here. It just looks like any other red day, at the top of the range, starting the downtrend. It's known to do these morning panic bounce setups, but it clearly didn't work here when I did it. Let's go to 524, which is back here. So you can see that morning panic bounce play. Let's just do it from right there, give or take. Totally just messed that one up. Right about there is fine. 524, and I took a buy at 935. I am doing a little better holding these, selling them after VWAP breaks. That's something I am improving on, and I think that will help me greatly as I continue to try doing my best. But my buy was at 935 at 815. So let's look at 935. 815 right here. So I bought in this candle 815. So right about right here is when I bought this. This ended up being a stutter step right here. It ultimately had the bottom down here, right? But this was you can tell right there the bottom of the candles. It was showing some kind of support, some kind of a wall of bidders. This is where I took a buy. Ideally the bounce starts there. I don't know how much it was red on the day when it got to this point, but it clearly was a stutter step, and that's why I stopped trading GGII towards the end of the week, because it was just a bit too crazy. I didn't, very inconsistent. So I got out of it, in terms of not wanting to trade it anymore, and that saved me a few trades there. So got a buy there at 815, 935, and I sold at 937. So 2 minutes later at 81. So 937, 81. Sold right here at the top of this candle right here. So I bought again right here at 815. Sold right here. Clearly just wasn't working out. Didn't like the price action. Didn't like the way it was trading. Ultimately the big volume candle was right here, and it still had room to drop. Another big volume candle, although not the biggest. Finally the bottom. This is starting to be very choppy, very inconsistent. This was the beginning of it. I stopped trading it again towards the end of the week, but that was a trade. Yeah, it was a pretty good trade because it could have worked out right here. A buy at 815, and then I sold right here because I didn't like the price action. That was a pretty good trade. And then the second one was at 939, 762. So let's look at 939. 762. So right here is when I bought again 939, thinking, alright, that was a stutter step. It's probably gonna do it here. Big volume candle at the time was the biggest volume candle, so I thought, alright, could definitely be the level right here. One stutter step, big volume candle. Here we go. This could be the potential, and it was ultimately another stutter step. I sold at 941, 763. Small profit, so 941 right here at 763. Sold right here. So I bought in this candle, I sold in this candle. Why? Because I hated this candle. How this could have been the reversal. Had a nice uptrend here towards VWAP and just stuffed. It just absolutely got sold into, made that sketchy looking wick. Immediately sold the next candle because I did not like that price action, still for a profit. And yeah, that was ultimately not the very bottom. This thing had 1, 2 stutter steps. This was the actual bottom. and it wasn't even an exact science because the big volume candle here was not bigger than here. It was a very choppy mess, but I ultimately traded this pretty well. You know, just a very nice tiny loss, trade a decent size too, not a small $400 position size. So that was ultimately a very, very good day. Some nice trading there, but towards the end of the day, I had these two trades that just did not work out at all. MJWL, TONR, these were both stocks that were up on the day a lot. Was thinking about buying them at a dip or maybe a VWAP or some kind of support level, and you know, ultimately selling at a nice, you know, uptrend, ideally towards the end of the day or maybe slightly before the end of the day, just something where it has a run up that I could sell into. Let's look at MJWL for 524. $524 is about right here. Yeah, this was a second green day. You know, I've seen this work on first, second, even third green days, but I don't want to go past the second green day. Just something I wanted to buy, you know, and sell into a strong close. Don't want to take the risk at the third day, but that was clearly the setup right there. And now let's look at 524, which is right here. I guess we'll highlight the whole day. 524, and I took a buy at small positions, by the way, again, just because I knew it was speculative, but I bought a 251.609. So let's look at 251.609. So it's right here, 251.609. So right about here, right? 259. Am I doing the math right? NJWL, yeah, 251.609, 251. Right here. 609 right here. Just took a buy right here. I remember this. Looks like an inverse head and shoulders, so shoulder, head, and then I thought, okay, could do the shoulder right here. I bought at 609. You know, I have the head of the inverse head and shoulders. I had this VWAP level to risk off of. Maybe there's a lot of bidders in this level right here, give or take, and there could be a nice support level, which means that, you know, it's going to do a nice uptrend, holding its highs relatively nicely. Could be a nice setup. Looking back now, I think maybe I shouldn't have considered it, because it looks like this line was kind of broken down, you know, and this was ultimately like a confirmed breakdown over that level of 62. You know, this was a confirmed breakdown maybe where it kind of cracked it, tried one more time, and then it rejected it. That could be something, but you know, it doesn't hurt to try inverse head and shoulders potential with VWAP right there, the risk. So yeah, it did not work out at all. This one absolutely took a dump. I had my sell at 255 and I sold at 58. So there was some slippage, I believe, but it wasn't too bad. Right here, 255. Just when it cracked to the head and it cracked to the VWAP level is when I sold, give or take, right here. And I sold at 58, so not exactly below the VWAP, maybe a little, but if not right at it. You know, just absolutely, you know, failed in that sense. But that was okay in that sense. This one absolutely took a dump. It kind of downtrended here. This was a confirmed breakdown under the VWAP, so it breaks VWAP, bounces, tries to get back above VWAP and rejects it. This thing took a nasty fall from 58 to 45 cents, but TONR, the next one, is worse. I could have considered the inverse head and shoulders here, but I don't like it because the neckline of this section wasn't as high as here. We had a shoulder, head, shoulder, and that actually worked. So it got from 50 to 60, so that wasn't bad in that sense, but you know, it was just a low odds that it was going to actually work because of the fact that we had that level right here, that neckline not as high as here ideally. Not a bad trade. I traded it small. I don't regret that at all with MJWL, but there was some slippage in the sell. Maybe should have been more quick to sell, but ultimately I don't regret this one at all. This one was alright. I traded it well. TUNR, this was a bit sketchy, a lot harder to trade because it was a sub penny stock. But let's look at TUNR for the 24th. Yeah, you can see just a sketchy candle. And it's not like it's done something like that before recently. It's not like, what is it? ADHC, I believe. See where it has these sketchy freaking wicks? There might have been a misprint, but it's not something that just like, it's not something that clearly showed some nice sketchiness. You know, it didn't look that sketchy, but clearly that's something I won't consider in the future trading TUNR, because it can do these one-day pump and dumps, if you want to call it that. Let's look at TUNR for the 14th, not 14th, the 24th. So it was this day right here, it seems. Yep. And at the time, it still looked like a very nice first green day, because it was at, you know, the top of this, you know, the top of this level. It ultimately closed right here, but you know, at the time, it was a very strong first green day type of stock, and that absolutely rejected. But anyway, TUNR, this was a buy at 304.59, so 304.59, right about here. 59, so I took a buy right here, and yeah, ultimately this thing could have worked out. It was still at the very top of the level. I think I could have done a buy at 50, but I kind of missed it. But you know, it wasn't a bad try at all. Right here at 59, just did not work. I forgot the level I was risking it off of. It might have been 55, I don't remember, but yeah, there was a buy there at 59, and then I sold right at 309, so 309, and then I sold at 55, so 309 was right here, because it just didn't like the price action. It just looked really ugly after I bought it, and I sold into it. 55 was an important level, and it did hold it, although it had a sketchy wick, and I did sell it down here. This is why, for if I traded it well, I put okay, because I did sell at a support level. But had I have, you know, tried risking it off of the support level, you know, I might have had this nice spike to sell into. At 70, that would have been super profitable to sell into. But it was overall okay. You know, I didn't do anything stupid. I didn't like hold past this breakout, and then when it broke 55, it had this massive drop right here to the 30s. Just not, you know, too bad. And this is overall, you know, this is a sub penny stock, so just a few ticks, and you know, that's a large percent move right there. So yeah, this one definitely didn't work out. MJWL, same with TUNR. It looks like it says I was too early. That might have been possible. It wasn't too bad. It's just me trying new setups, which both of these did not work at all that day. I'm gonna take a look at something else, and I'll be back in a moment. Okay, I'm back. Next trade was FBCD. This is the second time I believe it had a morning panic bounce play. I missed the one from the other day because I just, you know, didn't think that it was gonna work because of the low volume, but it was actually very clean that other day, and there was a lot more range. But this one also had plenty of range, and this is when I started getting better at selling slightly past V1. So let's look at FBCD for the 25th. Right about here. So this was nice. It was the first, you know, actual red day when you look at the daily chart, although this one I believe had a morning panic bounce play as well. Let's look back at the 25th. So just a little further back, right about here. right, the 25th, and now let's kind of bring this back closer. Yeah, this was a morning panic bounce play right here, and I took a buy at this one really worked out. Big yes. I bought at 937 at 23, give or take 24. So let's look at 937, 24. Right here, this was a killer execution. Right at right here 239. Just a really good entry. You know, it wasn't an exact size because we didn't have like a big volume candle in this morning panic bounce play, but there was, you know, a drop here, but you can see by the wicks it was starting to show some support. I bought at 239 and my sell was at 938. Just the next minute, you know, just a 1 minute sell right here, 938. And it looks like I sold at 249. So 239 was right here my buy, and then 249 was my sell. Right here the next, I just didn't know if it was gonna work or not because we still didn't have that big green volume candle. Didn't know because the volume was low. You know, it could just turn around immediately if somebody wants to sell a whole bunch of shares, but this one eventually worked out. I could have held longer, could have sold this one slightly past VWAP at 26.6 for example, but this was overall a pretty good trade given my lack of experience, you know, trying this morning panic bounce play on very illiquid stocks. Let's just see, for example, 266 if I sold there. If for example I sold at 266, that would have been a nice 10% gain, $53. Still, looks like I'd still be down on the week, but still, you know, with hindsight is 2020. But I'm still looking at FBCD for potential morning panic bounce setups because it clearly does it, and this was not bad at all. You know, almost a 4% gain, and it was overall a conservative sell because of the fact that I didn't know how it would do, because from my previous experience it trades with such little volume, but I did it, you know. I don't regret it at all. This was a pretty good trade right here. And now let's get to the chop fest here. The next day I traded GGII twice. Morning panic bounce play. Both of these were stutter steps. This thing was absolutely trash. That's why after the 26 I stopped looking at this. You know, I need to stop saying that, but just sometimes some stocks, they do nice morning panic bounce plays, and then other days it has like 3 stutter steps, so I just stopped after that day. But let's look at GGII for the 26. Right here, just another red day, although this one didn't really break this 45 level. It had the morning panic, you know, had a crack below 45. That would have made it very nice, but that wasn't the case here. But let's go ahead and look at the 26. This is the 26 right here. Does that mean I can change this to... No, I don't really have it. Yeah, 6 days, 1... Never mind, that's not what I thought that was. Let's go ahead and look at the 26, which is right here. Clearly had a morning panic bounce play, but you know, it was messy. And then I remember looking at this inverse head and shoulders right here, but because it had like that bad news, I didn't want to trade it, and it ultimately failed. It failed, you know, pretty nicely. It did do an uptrend later in the day, but you know, let's just look at the trade here for the morning panic bounce play. You know, this is when I traded a large position size, and it just, again, was a chop fest, absolute chop fest. Probably, I think this day FBCD had another one, and it was very clean, something I could have traded, but I went with GGII, and I regret that. This stock is just very choppy. This was my you know, large $2,500 position size, and then I had another one. Let's look at 933. I bought at 626. So 933, 626 right here. Of course, this wasn't like my clear entry and exit, because I traded multiple position size. 933, I had a buy right here, and then another buy right here, then two buys right here at the top. And again, I've said this a lot of times, but you know, I had a trade like this before, and the thing just, you know, was looking like this right under the VWAP level, so I sold because I thought it was going to reject, but ultimately broke out nicely. Then I started seeing that a few more times, but this time it actually had, and this was something I saw later when Tim traded this later in the week for some losses, trying to, you know, trade the bottom of this thing. Just a random low volume compared to the big candle here that just wipes it down, another leg down. So yeah, had a buy here, then two more buys, rejected VWAP. It tried to get through it a little bit. Maybe I should have tried selling after I saw that it rejected, but you know, it just ultimately failed. It ultimately failed right there, made a tiny leg down, and I sold at 940 ultimately. So 940 at 592, which was right here, this big red candle that just rejected. And I remember there was some slippage, but it wasn't too bad. Sold right here, 592. And then once it started to show that it was holding this level right here, it could have been like a tiny dip below 6, you know, max panic, right? That's when I went for that second trade. And on that second trade, I bought at 942, 601. So 942 was right here, and 601 right about there, 942. So I bought right here when it just looked like it was starting to hold this right here. And I remember being a little scared when this green candle right here was actually lower than the bottom of that candle, but it ultimately worked out. Bought at 954, sold at 958. Wait, that's not the right one. Right here, 945 at 632. 945, 632 right here. So it looks like the top of this candle right here. And so I took a buy here, and then I sold right here. Why? Because it got slightly above VWAP. So yeah, that's why I took my sell there. Had a nice uptrend afterwards. Probably could have maybe sold some, if not most of my position, when it's slightly above VWAP, and then hold just a small position left to see how much further it can go. I can totally do that. You know, had I sold at, you know, for example, 668, let's see how that would have happened. Yeah, that would have been a lot more massive, and I'd be up like $100 more on the week, so I'd be up $200 on the month. Still that same position size, but yeah, I don't regret that. That was a nice learn from there. You know, if I keep seeing that it goes slightly further past that VWAP level, you know, I'll consider selling maybe instead of most, but half, or you know, maybe a quarter. But I've also seen them like slightly get past the VWAP level, and then it dips under it, and then it breaks it again, and then it does a nice move. But here it just kept uptrending, so that's something I'll just have to keep looking to, you know, improve on. Maybe consider selling most of my shares once it gets slightly past the VWAP level, but still hold some left to try to gain more profit. So this was overall a pretty good trade. I held the first one for 7 minutes because I had one buy, what ultimately was, you know, not the bottom, and then this one I held for 3 minutes exactly. And I could have held longer, but you know, overall pretty good. I'll definitely consider that when it breaks slightly past VWAP to sell most of my position, and then maybe consider a wait for a dip under it, and then it comes back, and then sell once the level 2 shows a reversal. Right, that could be something I could take into consideration. Or if it just keeps uptrending like here, it doesn't do a dip back under VWAP, just sell when it starts to show a reversal. That will help me sell a lot better. That's something I'll consider for this week. So yeah, just overall 2 trades there with GGII. Stopped looking at GGII after that. FBCD is another trade again, and this was the 27th. Let's look at FBCD for the 27th right here. This was a nice massive red day, so we still had like these little red candles trying to hold the highs, but this one was pretty massive. If that wick is real, it shows that it was a nice morning panic bounce play. This was the 27th. Doesn't look like we had a nice one in the morning, but let's go ahead and look at it. I remember thinking about whether or not I would have traded it, but I wasn't there for that, I think, when that one happened. This was the morning panic bounce play. Although it looks like a lot, it actually wasn't much range right here. At least it didn't feel like it. I took a buy, 938, 274. So right here, 274. I remember, being a bit early on this entry. I held through this. Could have considered another buy. Did not realize that we were right at this 27, perfectly round number of support. Could have totally bought there, but I didn't want to use more of my trading capital because I did trade $5,000 of volume yesterday. So I still wanted to have some, money to trade in the cash account so I can consider any potential setups in the future. Could have definitely bought another position right here of the same amounts. FBCD, my position size was $500. Could have totally considered another one right here, kind of bring down the average, make it a bit nicer because of that 27 level. I need to take more consideration of where it is on the chart. If there's a round number that it might potentially be able to hold. I considered it with GGII, then it broke under it, but then when it was showing that it was actually holding and it could get back above 6, that's when I went for that second buy. Should have applied that here, but that's something I'll learn. So again, had my buy, I think it was right here at 938. Was it 938? Yep. And then I sold at 949, almost 950 at 275. So 950, 275. So right here, 950. Well, almost 950. So yeah, 275, right? Yeah, 2755, 949. So yeah, just actually didn't really get solely above VWAP. It was like right under it. But that's where I sold there. Let's see what I said about the trade. It's not there. It's probably improperly. But yeah, this one actually, worked out. The volume dried up. And then it started, getting back and forth under this VWAP level. This is kind of like the one where it gets slightly past VWAP, dips, and then it makes a run up. It got as high as 29, which is impressive. Again, I'll consider this. That's something I'm actually going to consider. So just, I guess, for number one, alright, not that kind of number one. When it gets past VWAP, sell most and hold. And then the idea is that, to dip under VWAP and then leg higher, or it can keep uptrending and wait. I'll just leave it right here. Wait for two. That's something I can do. And number two would be just remember around those are two things that I've kind of learned from this that would help me just be more profitable on the setups that do work. Again, I'm not too mad at the TONR MJWL trades that just didn't work at all. That's part of just learning, but that's what I've seen to understand from here. And just out of curiosity, if I sold at 209, that would have been 5%. So there wasn't much range in that trade ultimately, even if I sold it perfectly. But that's still something I'm gonna consider now. Just seeing how it does once we get to that VWAP level. if it just dips below it and then uptrends, or if it just keeps uptrending. This one wasn't perfect because of that low volume, but that's something I'm going to consider learning from here on out. I'll try to get better. Hopefully that will result in better trades this week, or maybe not, but I'll just keep working at it, keep trying. And the last trade, AABB, this one was pretty bad because there wasn't much range. AABB for 528, right? Yep. Guess I'll do it from here. Yeah, from here. 528. It just started having this uptrend recently. So once we started to have like these 3 green days in a row, I considered it again for a potential morning panic bounce play. And that's exactly what happened. I considered it today. Not today, but the 28th level the last day. But it looks like a chop fest. And this wasn't a number 5. This was a number 5 lower low. Because we did have that drop here. Potential morning panic bounce set up. But then it started trading all sketchy right here. Small candles in it. Trying to, go towards VWAP. We didn't have like a big volume candle here. So once we started to have this downtrend into this, lower low, that's when I considered it. So it wasn't the best, trade, a lower low, ideally a higher low, or sometimes a bottom low, double bottom. But, it doesn't matter. I've seen lower lows work nicely, double bottoms, and then higher lows as well. But this one didn't work out ultimately. I put no, and that's true. I traded it well. I remember here I had some shitty executions because I was trading 1,500 shares. Had I have traded 2,000 shares instead of 1,500 shares, I think I would have gotten a very nice sell, a much better sell than what I had. And that's just something to learn from. Just don't trade, 500 increments. Of course, it depends on the price of the stock, but, in this one, and given how small my position was, I should have considered just a tiny 2,000 share position, even 1,000, just not 1,500. That was my issue there. And yeah, so my buy was at 954, 1958. So 954 was right here, and then 1958 was right about here. And I remember that was the top of my limit. 1958 was trying to get something lower, but again, just bad entry overall, 1,500 shares. But I still got inside the trade, give or take. I think it was this candle, because this 954 is when I entered it, but 955 is when I got executed at 958 right here. And then my sell, which took forever, I put the actual price when I got executed was at 958, 19.7, so 958 was right here, and then 19.7, so right here. I tried putting in a sell when it was right here at this 2 level, because I didn't like how the VWAP was getting closer to the charts, the candles. So that means that there's just less range for profitability. So once I put my sell, I just did not get executed, this whole downtrend. Didn't get executed when it was still green either. Ultimately sold at this level, still got profitable, but had I maybe have been executed at this 1995 level, let's just see how that would have been. It wouldn't have mattered too much, but that would have been just slightly more profitable. And that was the issue here, is that there just wasn't much range on this stock from this level at 19.5 to almost, yeah, it touched 20, but it just wasn't much range here. Ideally maybe the stock would have been uptrending more, or maybe had some very large green candles. None of that happened, so that was the case with this trade overall. Just fine that I tried it, and I didn't trade a large position size because I knew it was a bit sketchy. But that is ultimately the end of this week. 2 notes: when it gets past VWAP, sell most and hold. It could dip under VWAP and then leg higher, or it can keep uptrending, wait for level 2 reversal to sell. Now, what if it doesn't work? I guess it's just going to be something I'm going to consider once I'm at that moment on the price action. because maybe it just gets slightly past VWAP and then it just fades away and makes a leg down or something like that. That's something I'll have to keep, learning, observing, so I can get better at that. Number 2, remember round number levels of support, like that one with FBCD at 27. Even my sell at, I know my mouse wheel is still twitchy. I bought a new mouse, TONR. It hasn't arrived yet. Like that 55 level, sure it held. When it broke it was ugly, but had I maybe sold, later into that run up that it had, and not have sold at that support level, probably would have been more profitable there. But I can't get too upset because the price action did look absolutely disgusting after I traded it. Although MJWL was kind of worse. So yeah, just gonna overall get better at that. Try to choose better positions. Not positions, but better setups. I'm gonna consider these 2 things for this week, and yeah, that's all I got. Hopefully I can do a lot better next week. Maybe not, but I'll just keep trying my best. And yeah, overall a good week there to learn from.